The UN Commission on the Status of Women convened its 67th session in New York this week. The Commission focuses on femicide and gender-based violence. This year's theme honed in on creating digital access through innovation and technology to enhance and progress the women agenda. Social Development Minister Lindiwe Zulu attended and delivered a message on behalf of South Africa. Minister Zulu joins us now. Good evening to you and welcome, and congratulations on International Women's Day as well. As we celebrate, commiserate and challenge the world on this International Women's Day, what was the nub of the message you delivered to the gathering in the US?
Thank you very much for the opportunity and a happy International Women's Day. The struggle continues basically for women all over the world. And in South Africa, of course, it's made much more difficult by the fact that we are battling with gender-based violence and femicide, but also we are battling generally with issues of poverty, hunger, and unemployment. So the message that we brought here to the United Nations, to the Commission on the Status of Women, is that despite all those challenges, we can see progress in some other areas in as far as women empowerment is concerned, and in particular with regard to education. And the theme as it is innovation and the technological change and the education in the digital age for achieving gender equality and women empowerment for women and girls. Yes, I fully agree with you. We do have those challenges. However, we must not also acknowledge where there is progress which we are making collectively as a society in South Africa.
In your address, you mentioned the GBV tracker tool as South Africa's contribution to innovation in the fight against GBV, launched in 2021. Minister, how well has that tool worked?
The tool has worked very well, but also let me say, Iman, that we will not have necessarily a tool that will be 100% working well and not be challenged, because first and foremost, we need to keep on looking for new technologies to make sure that it is easily accessible to our people. But more than that, we've got to be able to ensure that people are able to even make the call, if people are able to communicate, because it's one thing to have a tool that is not accessible, and that makes it very difficult. But the fact that we have this tool, and this is a tool that is being celebrated by many women, in particular in the African continent, they're celebrating quite a number of our innovations as South Africa from a technological point of view, and the fact that the Department of Social Development has got the GBV Command Center, which has won awards here and there in the world, and people are wanting to know how does it work, and then we have to break it down. But I agree with you, it is a tool that needs to make sure that it assists even the women in the furthest of our country.
But is it working?
Yes, it is working. Yes, it is working.
And so what are some of the areas where it's been able to, because part of the tracking was to create and build trends to know where the hotspots were. So what benefit have we been able to, even though, as you say, it's not without its bugs, what benefits has it been able to provide in terms of either how we shape policy or how we deploy resources?
You've just said it yourself, Iman, by saying that it assists us in tracking and making sure where are the hotspots. We know where the hotspots are now, because when we track, when the call comes through, it then tracks exactly where the person is, and then it is also able to alert the police at the place where a person is calling from. And it also has a follow-up, because we need to follow up. It also connects to social workers who in many instances have to engage with the victims. And by the way, just the day before I came to the United Nations, I made sure that I visit our command center to check whether things are still going on fine or not. And I did find that there were some technical glitches that we need to deal with, because we needed to change from the previous service provider to a new service provider. And you know that whenever you have a new service provider, you are going to be confronted with some challenges here and there. Yes.
In the meantime, you know, tonight, Minister, our program's been, well, how shall I put it, morose, maybe even melancholic, because we really took a topographical view of, gender-based violence in South Africa. And we understand that while we have the best plans, we are really still having the same argument and the problem of implementation. It leads me to this next question, Minister. How can we move ahead in creating and even harnessing technology to support and protect vulnerable people in our society when we still face the very basic problems of not even being able to get through to the police emergency number for help? 7 million emergency calls are dropped at the call centres. We've got less than half the people power that it needs to operate.
Iman, let me start here. As the Department of Social Development, we have consistently been saying that this challenge of gender-based violence is something that we need to do by ensuring that we go down to the communities. We empower the communities, we empower local government, we ensure that the infrastructure that is supposed to be enabling for people is up to scratch. And obviously that is not as quick as we want it to be. And gender-based violence, in my view, I've said to the department, let's look at this from house to house, street to street, community to community, because you can have all these fancy things and systems that you put in place, but if we are not going to address the root cause of gender-based violence and also address issues of ensuring that there is workshops, which I'm happy that they are happening now, there's activities and there's action that is being taken by both men and women. And this is when I thank the NGOs and men in particular who've stood up and said, not in our name. They're not only just saying not in our name, they are physically being available at the local level to engage with communities. Yes, the system must work. I believe all the systems that we put in place must work, especially because those systems that we're putting in place are also very costly for government.
Right.
And from my point of view as the department, I'm saying I don't want anyone who comes and says they are capable of providing a service and yet they are not capable of providing a service because we're spending too much money. I want to see value for the money of the systems that we're putting in place.
Minister, thanks for that. And again, part of a larger discussion I'm sure we'll have throughout the course of the year. Just a final question. How did things play out when the cabinet reshuffle was announced? We understand the former Minister of Women and Children, Youth and People with Disabilities was due to speak, but deferred that duty to you upon the announcement of her exclusion from the cabinet.
Yes, Iman, these are issues that we are always ready for. Yes, it's only humane that you are in a job and you are hoping that you are going to complete your term. And we know that. We are political people who are always aware of the fact that you can be in your job today, and when there's a reshuffle, you might go. It's not an easy thing for anybody, but I can tell you, she took it with stride, and I took it with stride because she also depended on me in making sure that every activity that she was supposed to do here in New York, I take that up. She's my comrade. She's somebody that I know has contributed immensely, particularly to the issues of women. She's contributed immensely to the liberation struggle of South Africa. And I'm sure the president will thank her for the contribution that she has made. But I think that there's many other things that she can do right now. She's got a huge experience, even on the international space. She will probably find something else to do and continue to contribute to the well-being of South Africans, because you don't have to do that necessarily because you're a minister. We have lived through it. Being a minister or not a minister, we've given it our best.
In closing, Minister, and very briefly, how do you envisage working with the new minister of that portfolio, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma?
The good thing, again, is that I'm going to be working with a woman, a strong woman, who I know that when it comes to issues of women and empowerment of women, she's very strong. She doesn't take it lying low, and she knows what she's about when that is concerned. She's got vast experience also, having been at the head of the AU and having been to the United Nations itself. I'm sure that when the next Commission on the Status of Women takes place, God willing, she'll still be there. She'll represent South Africa as much as she has done all her life.
Social Development Minister Lindiwe Zulu, thank you very much for talking to us tonight, joining us on the sidelines of that UN gathering in New York.